Hey guys, so before we get rolling on this review, I actually want to first apologize for how long it took me to get this out. Some of you guys may know this, or if you don't, you'll know it now, but I actually am basically a professional kickboxer and mixed martial arts fighter and a coach of the same. And I've had a couple really big fight offers on the table recently that have kept me just really busy training and doing that aspect of my life. So it's been a second before I could circle back and finally do the video editing for the Ansbach longsword review that we're about to see now. So anyways, hope you guys enjoy it.
What's up, gang? So I am here today with the new Valiant Armoury and Angus Trim collaborative longsword, the Ansbach. This is really my first time taking this thing out and getting to play with it, so this will be my real life first impressions from getting to actually swing this thing around. So yeah, here we go. So I've been out here for about half an hour or so moving this thing around, just kind of swinging it and getting a feel for how it handles. And I gotta say, you can really feel that blade presence that these Type 16 swords are known for. And this one is definitely no exception. Coming in at 45 inches, it is a relatively compact and powerful package. It's a little bit shorter than some modern longswords, but as modern people, we tend to want our swords to be a little bit longer than some examples might be historically. But since the lighting is so nice, I just had to take a moment and be like, look at this pommel, look at how gorgeously this is shaped, and just how nice this peen job is, and all of this is just like really aesthetically pleasing. This seam right here that, I actually only noticed this now that I put it up towards the camera, like I cannot feel it at all. It is basically completely invisible to the touch. I didn't even notice it a little bit. Now I do got to say one thing that I did notice about this, more so when handling it and not quite as much while actually swinging it around, more just picking it up and moving it, is this crossguard here. You can see it has a nice, like, sharp, clean line to it, which is gorgeous aesthetically, but I do gotta say this does bite a little bit, and this little finger injury here is not related. That's a different different matter. But this crossguard does have like a little bit of bite to it, but I think that's part of the price that let's say that you pay for having this sharp defined line. So from a user perspective, I'm not sure if that's quite as ideal, but it does look gorgeous, so that's going to be a bit of a call on that. I'm not sure, I'm not sure how I feel about that. If you're gripping the sword correctly, which is back here behind the riser, and I know a lot of us modern people tend to ignore these risers at the risk of your fingers, but if you're gripping the sword correctly back here behind the riser and using that to index where your hand position is, then this is not really going to be an issue. And like I said, while I was actually swinging the sword around, I didn't really notice that as much. But I do notice it whenever I pick up the sword and my finger, and not just because it's cut, whenever my finger brushes across this sharp edge of the crossguard, I can feel a little bit of bite there, so that's something to be aware of. But otherwise, I just absolutely love the shaping on this thing. This is really, aesthetically, this sword is right up my alley. It's got the downturned quillions, a little bit of file work just to add some detail, and this scent stopper pommel is absolutely gorgeous. The wasted grip, all of this just really came together really nicely. So checking out the blade here, so it's a relatively beefy blade with like a nice central fuller that is just very well done, very clean lines all the way to the end. The termination is very well done. Everything is like very well defined. It gives a nice pleasing aesthetic to the overall blade shape of the sword. And one thing that I do really like about this blade is, man, it feels like an authoritative blade, like when you pick it up and hold it. So let's go over some numbers for this weapon, shall we? So the overall weapon length is 45 inches long. 9.5 inches of that makes up the actual haft of the weapon here, and then 34.5 inches of that is going to be the actual blade length from the base of the crossguard on up. There's a half inch that gets kind of lost in there that actually is, makes up for the length of the crossguard itself, which has a little nice central raised area. The weight of this weapon is 3 pounds, 3 ounces. My understanding is that's the advertised weight. That is also what my scale indicates. The point of balance on this weapon was about 5.5 inches out. I haven't measured it like
exactly precisely, and really that the point of balance doesn't tell you a whole lot about how a weapon feels in the hand. It is a nice thing to be aware of, because it does give you some indication. But a sluggish sword, even if the point of balance is at the cross, is still going to feel sluggish just because of moving the overall weight. So the center of percussion on this weapon is actually pretty easy to find. It's basically right here at the end of the fuller, like right in this area. And basically what that means is there are vibrational nodes in these blades, right? And that kind of dictates how the sword flexes when it actually cuts into a target. When you cut at the area that has the least vibration out here in the blade, which is what people call the center of percussion, then that means that more of the force of your strike is actually transmitted to your target. And additionally, the hilt node back here, this will kind of dictate how much of like that shock from the impact comes back to your hand. And that's, one thing that Angus Trim, is really big on, is like kind of like tuning up those nodes and moving those around. So a big part of what you're paying for when you buy a sword designed like us is essentially that expertise. At that center of percussion, the blade is pretty wide compared to its little brother, the Tauber. And I don't want to compare these swords too much. I want to do them on their own merits. But just the fact that the blade is like so nice and wide out here really means that like it cuts well and it tracks well through the target. Especially when you're cutting like heavier duty targets like tatami and whatnot. Now I did do a little bit of water bottle cutting with these, which I will probably show up on the screen now. I'm not the best at cutting water bottles. I'm okay at it, and I can get through pretty well. I feel like water bottles as a target tend to reward very sharp, very fast cutting swords. And this one takes a little bit more use to like get swinging. So just talking about the edge of the sword for a second, this did come with a pretty keen edge. It's not quite as keen as I've put on some of my other swords, but there's an argument to be made about like how sharp is sharp. What purposes are you using it for? So it cut very well, like right out of the box. You can see me zinging through some mats probably right now.
All right, gang, it's really bright out here, so we are about to do our first cutting session with the new Ansbach by Angus Trim and Valiant Armoury Type 16 longsword. So we're going to see how this goes, all right? Starting with just some basic cuts. I don't know if you guys can hear that, this blade friggin' sings when it cuts. Like butter. Oh, very nice. This is gonna be a fun day. All right, here we go, mat number 2. I did a terrible job at rolling these things, so we'll see how they hold up. So far, this thing is an impressive cutter. Let's do some short edge undercuts. These are pretty difficult cuts, actually. So maybe we'll take one off the top first. Not my best. Pretty smooth though. To the other side. There we go. Maybe we can get one more out of this. Ha 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 ha, nice. Ah, nice. Ah, ha, ha. One day. So I've been doing these half mat rolls all day, just because tatami is expensive. This is the first full mat roll of the day. I have nothing, but the highest expectations that this blade will breeze right through without even noticing the difference, really. But thought it'd be fun to do some rapid fire cuts.
Were really just a joy to cut with, and you can probably see the big smile on my face as I'm getting through those targets. I don't see like a secondary bevel to make the cutting edge there. It does seem like it goes from like the main bevel and then like maybe a very small, very well blended secondary bevel, but like it's not really very visible. It's kind of hard to discern, to be honest. It looks like it, like I said, if it is a secondary bevel sharpening method, it's very, very gentle. It's not harshly imposed and that will really help maintain like the blade geometry to ensure that the sword is able to cut as efficiently and effectively as possible. And I have been told that Sunny is very good about putting like a nice appleseed edge on these blades. So you know, I have no complaints with the edge that it came with. I might touch it up a little bit at some point, but I mean, you can see just based on the videos that it more than cuts, you know, as is. So I thought we'd get in a little bit tighter and take a look at these weapons here. So the scabbard that you get is actually relatively similar to the one that comes with the Tauber. There are little differences that you can see if I hold them up both side by side. I'm going to be careful doing this because I don't want to bang them up into each other. You can see they're relatively similar. But one thing that I do really like is the way that it's kind of carved so that the quillion here, this extension, can actually fit there and fits really nicely. You know, there's a little bit of a gap, but not really very much of one at all. Pretty similar shape on the end of these two weapons as well. Let's see if we can get that to focus there. Come on, there we go. One thing also to be aware of is, like, you know, like I wouldn't even think of this as an issue, but I know some people are apparently sticklers about it, is there is a little bit of a rattle where you can feel the point rattling around in there if you shake it. But, you know, like I said, I know that some people are sticklers about that. Like, for my own part, you know, I don't really, you know, these are the nicest scabbards that I have for any of my swords, so I won't complain. They're, you know, I think the work is quite lovely, and it seems pretty well done to my eye. Just a quick look at the suspension system that you get if you get the option with the scabbard. They do actually send a sword belt along with it, and the necessary harnesses, etc., so that you can actually wear the sword. The leather is a little bit dry feeling, so it has a tendency for these knots to kind of to unravel a little bit. I think that's just a matter of like breaking it in, really. But overall, I think it's a pretty handsome package. This is kind of a pain to tie, so you know, you kind of want to look up a video. Todd Cutler actually has one, or Todd's Workshop rather, has one on how to actually get these sword belts so that you can actually wear them. So you can kind of take a look here at how I've adjusted this by looping the secondary harness around this main belt here, and then this bigger buckle fastens onto the remainder of the tail of the strap of the main belt here. So yeah, pretty cool little package. You know, like if you go to Renaissance fairs and stuff like that, then you know you'll probably enjoy having the scabbard. It has like a pretty tight fit. It doesn't tilt. You know, it's not going to come out. I will say that the Tauber also had a tight fit at first, and now that one has loosened up enough that the sword will tilt out if the sword tilts all the way over. But hopefully, if you're wearing it correctly, that won't be an issue. The way the sword actually draws, woo, that's a big boy. As far as like gaps, I mean, like you probably know this already from Valiant Armoury, like, you know, there's no gaps in there. Like, this all fits really tight. You know, there's a little bit of like a gap, of course, where the fuller is, but I mean, what are you gonna do? It's a fuller, you know, that's gonna be a thing. One thing that I do want to remark on is I'm not sure if this is due to just the way the weather has changed from where they manufactured the sword to where I am. A little bit of creaking in that hilt every now and then. It's like it's still a solid piece, you know. I just notice a little bit of like a creak in there where the wood, I guess, has shrank or whatever has you know happened. Not a big deal, but it is something that, you know, I know that some people will want to be aware of. I've been wanting like a Type 16 for a while, and I was really excited when you know, when they told me about this one coming out as one of the next swords in the Vision line. And they actually sent me this particular sword as basically a demo sword just for me to do like some cutting and do a video review with. It was very generous of Sunny to send this along to me. And I actually enjoyed the sword so much that I actually wound up purchasing this very sword. So this is, you know, what was just a demo review sword is now actually my sword. So now I get to knock around with it and really give her hell. You're not my father. Oh shit, you're back. Yeah, so that's my take on the Ansbach longsword by Angus Trim and Valiant Armoury. I think if you're looking for a strong performance cutter, that you're going to be very happy with this sword, just as I am. You know, the wide stiff blade just makes for excellent cutting dynamics, and it's just an awesome sword to pick up and behold. You guys can probably tell I'm still kind of in awe of it every time I look at it. As for pricing and where you can get it, you can get it from Age of Chivalry and Cult of Athena. Pricing starts at $12.95 for just the sword itself, and then if you want to get the optional scabbard, which of course you should because it really pulls the package together, then that brings it up to $17.95 for a sword this nice. You really want to have a scabbard to go with it. That's my final thoughts. Enjoy some blooper cutting footage and maybe a couple hero shots here at the end of the review, and we'll see you next time.
My first flubbed cut. So that was a short edge cut called a shield how, which clearly I need a little bit of work on. But I almost got it. Woo! Called that like Babe Ruth. Slippery Tommy, the bane of many a warrior. Alright guys, that was my last mat of the day. I've had a blast out here with the Vision Ansbach longsword by Valiant Armoury and Angus Trim. As you can see, this thing has no problems going through tatami like friggin' butter every time. I could really feel like when a cut didn't quite do the job, it was very much my fault, and I felt that every time. So this sword really communicates with you when you're cutting. And boy does it ever cut.